I have unmuted the audio, everyone. Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I would actually do this, but I didn't have a computer. So if there's any emergency, I'll know how to do it.
Yeah. There it is. Shrink that.
I've already got it on my desktop and I have to actually.
And reshuffle our agenda a bit, and we're gonna go right into our closed session pursuant to RCW 42.30.144B for discussion of personnel order of police contract negotiation position.
We are recording. Let me put us on Facebook.
I know, I'm like freezing over here.
I was okay when I put that in.
Gonna need a blanket in this room.
Are we good to go yet, Sarah, or not quite?
Just give us a sec. Okay, yep, now we're live streaming and everything's back on.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. So we skipped over our good of the order. So we'll just kind of go back to that, the review of regular meeting agenda before our one discussion item. So for the good of the order, anything council members have? Good, Councilmember Side and Michelle, just prior to about the session we had, about how to fund it and ensuring that, there's transparency. And, it's pretty common practice. The breakdown of budget, in the biennial budget, here for their budget on an annual basis. And then also, notice in the revenue section that the big change was, eliminating the council, direction and resolution that was done a year and a half ago. Construction and sales tax, that's the baseline amount will be 75, and that is not done for the all of that money that has been going into the strategic fund of the construction sales tax is being fed back. So that's a substantial amount of time that people have. And so whether or not those are in fact going to be expenses, it just highlights the need to segregate and identify which of the rest and which of the sufficient time to pay for. So anyway, I sent the email, I provided my proposal, and in addition, just for due diligence, I sent my proposal to financial consultant RFP. And she did, and also felt like, there are common and best practices. So anyway, I wrote my proposal up. It's basically in line with what I had presented both at the FAC back in July and what I was proposing in the CAL that we discussed it back last month. So I just wanted to ask if there was formal support to do that, and just to reiterate, when I said that this is a common practice, this is a common practice with biennial budgets. So this is in no way backtracking away from a biennial budget. It's still a biennial budget. You still get the ease of a simplified mid-biennial review. It's common practice, and we already have all of our underlying budget numbers done annually. So this is all information that is readily available. It's just how is it shown to council. And our job as council members is to approve the budget. That's our biggest responsibility, and ensuring budget sufficiency and sustainability is something that we should be able to determine without diving into pages and pages of details and comparing. Like, there should be a very easy way to do that. And I feel like the proposals I have put forward would make a high level view to where you could have an understanding of where we are. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And I
don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to get too into it right now. So like we can't, what we could do is, well, one of two things. I'm a little worried about time, for Cal, but we have a light council agenda. So I'm wondering one of two things. We could add it to the end of the agenda to discuss, but I don't believe we could do any kind of direction. We can't do any kind of direction in the good of the order. So we need to add it to either, but maybe, you know, if, during the council meeting, we could just add it as a quick discussion item.
I have some feedback.
Okay, but I don't want to get into a discussion on something that's just in the good of order. I'm wondering if again, if we want to do this, let's just put it on the agenda formally so that we don't take up the rest of our cow time when we still have agenda we haven't gone through.
Couple things, need to point out the strategic fund by resolution was only for the 21-22 budget cycle. Yes, it is. In fact, we pulled up the resolution. So I'm happy to forward that to council. In fact, we double checked that. So we will get into the rest of the budget. Also want to reiterate, council has a no surprise rule of bringing something forward at a meeting without preparation by staff and having discussions and decisions. And I think this is a really important discussion that needs to have the finance director present. And she's sick tonight, and prepped. So my recommendation would be to follow the council guidelines and provide Dana some time to have this discussion. Also remind the group that when we had this discussion last summer, we also had the discussion about the fact that we are implementing a major software program right now, as well as doing many other things. The finance department is absolutely overwhelmed right now. I don't think it's right when we're just about to bring, there was not consensus on this 4 months ago. And I don't think now is the right time for this conversation. I will say beyond a shadow of a doubt, OpenGov, you can dig into every penny that is spent. And when that system, what we talked about a few months ago was potentially waiting to have this discussion until OpenGov is implemented so that council can see and make the determination of whether or not that's the right way for council to go. But we are essentially almost finalized with the budget and doing the budget. And so without having Dana here, you know, I strongly disagree with bringing it forward this evening.
So I'm going to address two things. Number one is we do have feedback on the proposal from the finance director on like, we do this now, we can do this, we couldn't do it now, right? But again, we're in the good of the order right now. We're running low on time because I would like to have a break in between when we start our next meeting. So I'm suggesting that in order to have that discussion, which would be super quick and allow us to do what we're trying to do now, but not in the right place, would be to get it on the council meeting agenda tonight, to just be able to have. I'm just a little worried, but that's up to council. Like if you guys want to talk about it in Cal or try to squeeze it in the bottom, or if you want to wait, that's up to the group. I just don't want to use our good of the order time for discussing something that is not on the agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to propose that we would add it. I'm sorry, I got a
No,
little
that's
bit
okay.
long-winded. I was trying to give a brief overview and I'm not the best at being brief, so I apologize.
So my thing is though, you know, is it something you want to propose to add to the Cal, knowing though that we can't really have direction on it? But technically, I think you could if you add it to the council meeting. And I don't know.
To the council meeting, that's fine.
And that would just be something that you have to do during the meeting on that, so.
Well, I guess I'm curious if others are interested in having that conversation at all. I mean, this is something that I brought up very, very early before the budget documents were being finalized at all for the purpose of providing this,
Yeah,
you know.
and I think that's really important. Quick clarification for our clerk. Can we ask if council would like to do it during the council meeting in the Cal? Or should we just wait and have it be brought up as a motion and council does it then? I just want to stay on the straight and narrow on this.
It seems more appropriate to bring it up during review of the agenda during a regular meeting, because then you can have the talk then, like, hey, do you want to do this and not do this?
Okay. I feel like I'm on the edge of a vortex here. I'm just trying to avoid us getting sucked into it now. Okay.
Sure.
Any other good of the order? Councilmember Isaacson, I saw your hand up, but I wasn't sure if it was in response to what Councilmember Naplin was talking about. If anyone has any other good of the order items.
It was an IT issue and it seems like it's been resolved.
Okay, good. All right, so with that, review of the regular meeting agenda, gosh, there's not much. We usually just kind of peruse the consents agenda, which is just normal stuff. It's the minutes, and we have a super light agenda. So I'm assuming council is good to go on the review of the regular council agenda tonight. I don't hear any objections. And it would be at the next meeting though that you make that proposal. So during the review, right? Yes. Not now, I'm sorry. It's during the review of the agenda. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, okay. Okay, so I know we already did our closed session, so we're gonna skip down. This is our only scheduled item. This is just following up. I brought this up as a result of a council chat and talking to two members of one of the PTSAs. One of the many PTSAs in our area, in our school district, and they had seen, so this is the concession rental policy, sorry. So they had seen during one of the baseball league tournaments or something like that, they had seen, it was like a trial run, I guess, of the concession stand, and they had reached out to the city. And I think the response was, that was a trial run. We don't have a policy on that. So I had brought it up wondering, and of course, knowing that staff could not take this on or should not take this on probably with how busy everyone is, but if council would have an interest in, I don't know, having our attorney or some outside third party draft together the policy for us so that it's already mostly fully baked, we could give some minor feedback. I imagine it'd be pretty straightforward. There would of course be some kind of cost. So that's what I wanted to know, because I think I am not one to quickly jump on the bandwagon of every new thing that pops up. Oh, this would be great to do, or this would, but this one is really like a love note to the community. I think it's something that a lot of our PTSA groups and other organizations would be super excited about. We've had that concession stand for quite a while now, and it's just not getting utilized. One other thing that had popped up that I think would be great to explore as well is, well, what if they don't want to use the concession stand? Would they be allowed to just have a table or, things like that? But that's something that, we don't need to get wrapped up in. If we could get somebody else to do that work for us and put together a policy, start it, try it, and, see how it's going in 6 months or a year. You can always tweak it. Nothing's permanent. So I guess I just wanted some direction from council and what everyone thought about whether or not this is something you're interested in, because I don't have any formal information for you, like what it would cost or what timelines would be or anything. This is just in general, would you want to move forward looking at something like this with minimal? Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Rice.
Yes, I'm just saying yes, easy answer.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Corey, yes, yeah?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And there's a lot of things that we're having that expertise, whether it's,
Yeah.
food handling, the,
Yes.
electrical appliances, all kinds of, various things that come into play that need to be thought through in terms of on site or clean up, all things that we talked about for some of the other rental, and it's nice, to take that off of staff's plate if we can shift that burden.
Yeah, for sure. And my background is in the food industry, but so my wheels were already spinning about that stuff too. I'm like, well, what can we do quicker and rather than later? I mean, you could say no prepared foods right now, or anyways, but again, it would be really simple. So I guess then the next step, I'm guessing would be to get a quote or get an understanding of what that would actually cost for us to move forward or get options.
I do know that Steve is available for the meeting
Okay.
as well, so I think he's prepared to assist us.
All right, Director Lenashevsky, can you assist us?
Yeah, good evening, council, mayor, staff, Steve Lenashevsky, Public Works. I would offer a couple points. I heard a little bit of budget talk, and I think Councilmember Naplin, we couldn't hear most of half or more of what you said, so sorry. That's what John had his hand up for too. So I did text and it got better, so that's good. So on that note, with budgetary, this rolls into the budget a little. We are really trying to dial back. No offense to our attorneys, but we have spent more in the last 2 years on legal counsel than ever. So I think cautioning our group just on the attorney costs would be 1.1. 2. Yes, we had hoped to have this. It's in a folder where Larissa and I store work that we aren't getting to. We have 2 FTEs we have not fulfilled. I lost another storm coordinator person last week. So we are digging deep on trying to get resources. That's kind of an issue we're gonna maybe have to live with forever. I don't know. I'm getting pretty hopeless on all that stuff and hiring. So that's one point. But yeah, there are plenty of there are plenty of policies to plagiarize out there and study. It's not an overwhelmingly difficult task, but it is just legwork, research, grabbing whatever everybody else has. It would be nice to use. I'm sure there would be some ancillary costs to fit the room, to get it functional. It's not perfect, but it was nice to try. So we're not opposed to using it. Like you said, it's there, it should be used. It's just another policy to derive, and there's a lot of meatballs already on the plate that keep falling off. So it's hard to put another one on, in my opinion. But an interim one could be just first come, first serve. We'll get to cost when we get to cost and make it simple. I mean, I don't know. That's just a lot of work isn't, I guess, desired at this point. There you go. There's my pitch. Wasn't very good.
Go to
I'm
Councilmember
just
Brewster.
gonna, and I'm not volunteering, so this is always sort of I mean, I'm not saying I'm not volunteering, but this seems like one of those things when we're talking about restructuring the way committees work, that might be an opportunity for, the committee we were saying in terms of a specific task driven. I know when you did the procedure rewrite in terms of reviewing the documentation, if we didn't have a sort of, a very tight timeline, like if we could spread it over a little bit, that it might be worth bringing up in the Public Works Committee, see if we can get something going. I'm happy to do some initial culling in terms of pulling or working even with Steve to see if there's, some recommended resources we could pull from, because to the point, that's one area that I am pretty good in terms of finding things online, and then kind of come back and sort of see what the level of work is as sort of a starting point. And then if we determine it does need some level of legal review, sanity check, we might be able to sort of compress the hours involved, because I am cognizant of both the staff resources and the cost of the legal, but I'm happy to sort of start to do a first pass in terms of from a Public Works Committee perspective.
Yeah, I guess I was just worried about adding anything more onto a committee or staff, and that's why I was wondering if council is just interested in seeing how much it would cost
Well,
to just have them bring
Yeah.
whatever
and that's
forward,
good too.
and then go from there. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, no, I just want to say I'm not as concerned about having legal review and any cost associated with that. I think even if we did it out of our council budget, there's a lot of unspent budget this year. My biggest concern is staff time. And so if we could, do some of the legwork, council could do some of the legwork, we could work with Daniel and then, ensure that, this works with staff. I don't have a concern about spending legal time. I mean, like I said, the council budget, I don't think very many people went to travel this year, so I'm sure we have budget left over there.
Yeah, Mayor, go ahead.
The legal is an issue. We have on average, I think, $2,500 a month from council alone on non-meetings. So it's we have very high legal bills. 4 hours of legal time a month for council is over $1,200. So legal, we have been struggling as administration to find ways to manage legal. Our staff uses it very judiciously, and there are some big expenses that have come from the legislative side that have never been nearly as high. We've never seen legislative side of the legal bills this high, so it is a cost. And to Steve's point, our legal bills overall have been extraordinary. Not only did we switch new firms a couple of years ago, the rate of that firm was significantly higher than the other firm we use. And on top of that, the city as a whole started using many more legal resources. So I understand, that is an area that internally we've been trying to find ways to trim down significantly over the last 2 years.
So I guess what I want to know then from council is, would you want to know first could we get some kind of quote from our attorney of what that would cost to just have him do all the work and bring us like 98% fully baked, depending on any tweaks we need to make? Or would council want to form an ad hoc committee and just figure something out and then give it to our legal? It just takes a little more, possibly more time, but I don't know. It depends on our attorney's workload. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I hear everyone saying we want to move forward on it. So I just want to make sure, do you just want to know what the options are in terms of cost and what that would be?
I feel comfortable just moving forward. It seems like a pretty small thing. I mean, even at, I can't imagine that for this interim time, we would be talking about food handling. And I mean, I think let's just take that off the table. We aren't going to be letting them cook hot dogs, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
keep it simple. Do it for a short amount of time and.
And you would book it like you would book a field in essence, or it would just be like first come, first served, like the director was saying, and
Yeah.
Mayor, go ahead.
keep it
I was gonna
simple.
say, I don't know that it's that simple. Seattle King County Public Health is very strict on food handling and many other rules. So I wouldn't say a blanket statement. And I think that there probably needs to be some checking with legal and other policies, other cities on what they have to do to run concessions. Because public health is a regulator over everything to do with food. The city doesn't get to manage that, other than our policy. So you know more about that than I do.
I was gonna say, I totally agree, but I think what Councilmember Napland is saying is, for example, if they only sell, if it's essentially reselling and they're selling Skittles and stuff like that, they're not opening them up and making cute cupcakes or something like that. Anytime you need like a napkin and a fork, like you trigger certain things. So yeah, anyways, I think getting back to the point, I think sounds like council wants to move forward. We're not 100% sure what that is. So maybe we just, I don't know who I am directing this at. If we could get just a cost from Daniel and then come back at another meeting, the next meeting, and say, check in and be like, okay, so here's what it'll cost to just have our attorney do it and bring it to us. So do we want to spend that money? Where would it come from? That kind of thing. And then make the decision that at that point, if we want to do an ad hoc committee or something like that. Does that sound okay to everyone? Yeah. And I appreciate you volunteering because
I think part of that, sanity check is,
yeah,
to the mayor's point, is it 25-page document or
Yeah,
100?
hopefully not.
Is it, and what's the level of scope and granularity? Because I agree in terms of having gone to a basketball tournament or something else, you have tables with
Mhm.
concessions, and then you have, what's the level of, where do you need to draw the lines? And then as other rentals, can we repurpose some of the existing rental language that we already have for other facilities and recycle it and.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Director Lenishevsky, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, you guys have started to see some of the ramifications of rent and parking and everything else, right? So just know when someone rents the fields, you're going to have to talk about prioritization of who uses the concession if they are a renter or if they are not a renter. And then there's first dibs kind of thing, like, is there anything like that? I couldn't care less either way, but those are the things you've just got to layer on top. If a certain user rents it, they want to use it, then PTSA doesn't get it. There's things to renting facilities. If I could get rid of anything, I would probably keep actually having to use my hands to fix sewer facilities and get rid of renting that facility. It's painful, but we try to do our best to maintain all those relationships to keep everybody happy and everybody out of your guys' way. So that's, it sounds easy. It sounds great. It is a painful task and a time-consuming task. So there you go. No pitch either way.
I appreciate the feedback. We'll definitely keep that in mind. All right, so with that then, sounds like we have some kind of direction on that. So then just as always, there's the council planning calendar. I think there's a link if you look on your digital version of your agenda that you can always check out what's coming up next. And before I adjourn, because I think this will get brought up in our next meeting, just never hurts to throw it out there. Keep an eye on your calendar because we do have more meetings than normal heading into budget season. And we may have more meetings start at 5 versus 5:30. So just always make sure you double check the agenda. That's what I do because on the agenda, it'll say what time it's at and where it's at.
just in case at some point that changes. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn at 6:49. And we'll see you back at 7. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, Sarah. Can you resend me the council packet? I don't have the resolutions or the proclamations. I guess I don't need to read them all.
I think
Yeah.
honestly, it's really just, I want to have the information and the
Yeah.
decision tool for council and.
Yeah.
So really, it's just, how are the numbers just sort of with no implications
Yeah, for sure.
in how she does freedom, and how directors have to manage their budgets.
Yeah.
Just, formatting.
Yeah, we're going live, we're rolling.
All right, we've got everybody. All right. I'd like to call the October 4th, 2022 Duvall City Council meeting to order. Would you please join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Isaacson. Mr. Isaacson, are you there?
He will be back.
Councilmember Schaefer. Mayor Pro Tem McHenry. Here. Councilmember Mercer.
Here.
Councilmember Natlin. Here. Councilmember Lovett.
Here.
Mayor Overlander.
Here. We have a quorum. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Councilmember Naplin?
Yeah, I'd like to add an item for discussion, possible decision on the format of the biennial budget.
Are there any council members that would like that added?
Second.
We need to hear from at least one other person to add it to the agenda, otherwise the ask fails.
That would be a motion in a second.
So I made a motion. Do I need to make a motion then?
You don't need to make a motion to add to the agenda, but there needs to be consensus to add it to the agenda, I believe.
Well, just a motion and a vote, I think.
So
Or you
Councilmember, well, I was trying to also get council members to weigh in here.
Okay.
Councilmember Levitt and Isaacson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
I thought there was a second. Does there need to be yet another?
There needs to be either discussion or a full-on vote, since there's now a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion?
No,
Seeing none? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I'm fine having the discussion, but I'm confused whether we needed a consent or if we're doing it as a motion. I guess that's why I was confused.
All I'm asking is to add it as an item on the agenda to discuss and potentially decide later in the meeting. All we're deciding right now is, can we have this on the agenda to even talk about? That's the decision we're making.
I'll second the agenda to add it to the agenda.
Okay, so we have three, so we'll go ahead and add it to the end of the agenda, under new business. All right, do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to presentations. We have multiple proclamations this evening, so I'm not going to read them all into the record. We have a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, proclamation for Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation. And then we also have an introduction tonight with Dr. Susan Leach from the Riverviews School District.
Go to Nisha. I think she might be in with her. Let's check. Nisha, can you hear us? You're on mute, Nisha.
Susan is actually joining separately, so I'm not sure.
So why don't we Then why don't we go ahead and move to your presentation, and then we can loop her in when she arrives.
Sure. Let me, I only have so many screens to be able to try to figure out how to share this, so hang on one second.
We can see it now, Misha.
Can you see the presentation view, or are you seeing my like notes view?
Presentation view.
Perfect, okay. So the Riverview School District was asked to join tonight to just give a presentation on the capital facilities plan. The capital facilities plan was prepared based on information known in the spring of 2022 and adopted by our board of directors following the SEPA review on June 28th of 2022. The capital facilities plan is in large part a carry forward of the plan that was also written in 2021. So it's a bit of a review. Not a lot has changed, but I'd be happy to go through it. Some of just the basic district information that's included in this plan for maybe new council members or people that are joining us for the first time from the public. The Riverview School District covers about 250 square miles across King County, City of Carnation, and City of Duvall. And we serve approximately 3,000 students in our K-12 schools. We have 7 different school locations in our district: Carnation Elementary, Cherry Valley, Stillwater Elementary, Eagle Rock Multi-Age Program, and then Tolt Middle School, Cedar Crest High School, and the Riverview Learning Center. So when we're talking about this plan, it encompasses all of our campuses. The capital facilities plan project project growth at all 3 levels of our schools. A lot of the growth estimates that we are projecting in this plan reflect the housing starts in both City of Carnation and City of Duvall, in both single family homes and multifamily homes. A majority of those being single family residents. Estimated growth also comes from students transferring in from private schools, increases in kindergarten enrollment that we're seeing this year. We also are seeing a significant decrease in students attending schools outside of the district compared to pre-pandemic levels. And then also students returning from various locations after the COVID-19 pandemic. So like all the different schools in our state, Riverview was affected by the pandemic and saw an effect on our district's enrollment. As a result, this capital facilities plan for 2022 starts with a pretty conservative growth rate within the district. We are projecting a 1% increase for 22-23, and then based on a combination of those different trends that we anticipate to see increase, we do start to ramp up that growth to 2 and 3% in the latter years of the plan. The student enrollments in September of 2022 are showing that we did start seeing some post-pandemic stabilization. So enrollment growths are around 3% over the last year and this year combined. We do typically see some kind of settling of the enrollment following September. So we will continue to monitor that. Our official enrollment numbers that the state uses are calculated in October. So we just saw those this week, and we are actually above the projected 3,023 head count. So we are seeing that pretty close, but we did come in a little bit above that projection for this year for October. This next slide just goes over the different capacities within our actual school buildings that we have, the 7 different buildings and the permanent capacity that's available in each of those locations. And then comparative to our enrollment last year in those schools. And in most of our schools, we are showing that we are over capacity in the school. So I'll break that down a little bit further in these next slides. The district has permanent capacity needs at all grade levels throughout the district. Some of the reasons the elementary schools are hit a little bit harder than some of the other schools is due to the full day kindergarten change that happened several years ago, as well as the K-3 student ratio requirements for funding. We see smaller class sizes in the K-3 levels, which means we need more classrooms, and it creates capacity needs within our different schools. Middle school level is where we have the least permanent capacity needs. So that's why in the plan, you'll see there's less room for growth. This is a school that needs more modernization versus actual permanent capacity growth. And then the high school faces some pretty significant permanent capacity challenges in their common areas and as well as in their classrooms. We continued to add portables to this location. The high school is also the school that saw the largest growth this year in students returning back to in-person learning on their campus. This year's capital facilities plan carries forward the district's plan from recent years with updated information for a potential 2024 bond to fund a K-5 school, in addition to Cedar Crest High School having some added capacity as well. Again, like I mentioned, we're also planning some modernizations for Tolt within that bond planning. We are going back to the conversation this year throughout this school year to really figure out the specifics of a potential bond and where we need to adjust and adapt differently after post-pandemic and then our future projections. So the capital facility plan uses student generation rates. The student generation rates are the number of students that each housing type generates for single family dwellings or multifamily dwellings that we see impact the school districts. We have updated the student generation rates and are continuing to rely on the countywide averages for the purpose of generation rates. This year, the average for both single family and multifamily units declined from the 2021 levels. It's likely reflective of lingering pandemic effects. We will just continue to update those rates annually. They're the same rates that we've used for the past several years. So when we look at the impact fees that the capital facilities plan calculates out, our proposed impact fees are based just like last year on planning that new elementary school, high school addition projections, both with capacity needs to serve the growth that we have coming in our area. The anticipated construction costs, we did keep the same as the 2021 formula as we are really looking at the details of what that bond and construction projects look like. The fees are slightly lower in 2021 that are calculated for the impact fee as a result of the decrease in the student generation rates. And this is more true with the multifamily fees. In the previous years, the fees that we went and proposed to that we worked with the city of Duvall and city of Carnation on discounting is now discounted and continues to be discounted at 25% for both cities. And then the fee is discounted at the King County level at 50%. And so that's the fees that you see reflected in here and the difference between the county and the city. And that's very similar to the years past. And with that, I will open up for any questions.
Does council have any questions for Ms. Robertson? None in the room. Councilmember Isaacson or Levitt? Right. Not seeing anything. Thank you so much for that presentation. And now we do have Dr. Leach with us. So welcome, Dr. Leach.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm running a little late. I've been triple booked tonight, so trying to run between different events.
We're glad to have you here. So I'd love to have you provide a little bit of information about yourself to the council.
Sure. So I am coming most recently from the state of Colorado. I have been with the Jeffco School District in Colorado, which is quite large compared to Washington standards. So the district was 85,000 students, 155 schools. I'm actually a school psychologist by trade. Several years ago, began a career in administration and have just worked my way through into the current position. I have a strong interest and background in special education and behavioral health. Right now, I am working on just entry planning activities, and so entry planning is just a way for a new superintendent to transition into the role. And so what that looks like for me is just looking into all aspects of the district. So maintenance, facilities, the bond and levy work that's been done, climate and culture, retention and recruitment, curriculum, the state of our schools in many different ways, from the staff to the curriculum we use to the state of the facilities themselves. So really just taking a deep dive into all areas of the district and doing lots and lots of listening to teachers, administrators, students, parents, stakeholders, people such as yourself, just to get a real sense of the district as a whole and a sense of what the strengths and weaknesses are of the district. And then that information will just kind of inform my ability to prioritize some objectives for moving forward for the district. So I would say that right now, my initial impressions are this is just an amazing community. The community itself is incredible. The school system is great. I think that there are some things definitely that we can work on, but I think that they're very reasonable, doable things. But I think that there is definitely significantly more good than bad happening in the district. It's I have been to a lot of districts, and I would say that this is and I'm definitely biased now, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can and saying that it's just really a phenomenal district. The students are amazing. They're very distinct from other school districts I've been in that they're very comfortable conversing with adults. They have a very genuine rapport with the adults and vice versa. The students are engaged, the families are engaged here in this district at a level that I have not seen in my entire career, which is a huge asset. And students seem to really enjoy coming to school, which is also 90% of the battle. So there are lots of great things happening here. I do look forward to working with you and hearing what your any concerns or ideas that you have, and I'm doing that with all stakeholders right now. So I'm always open to meeting with you and hearing what those might be from your perspective and in the roles that you play in the community. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Dr. Leach. I can say I've had the great pleasure of seeing Dr. Leach several times in our community this summer. She's an absolute delight, and I know that I personally am really glad to have her here. You can already see the impact she's making on the district and the community. So thank you for being here and welcome to Duvall. Did anyone else on council have anything they'd like to add or questions you'd like to ask? Mayor Pro Tem McHenry?
No questions, just I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. I'd love to meet up and just happy to have you here and excited to see what happens in the future.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here as well.
Well, thank you and enjoy your evening. All right, moving on to comments from the audience. First up, clerk, did we receive any via email for this evening?
I believe, we had some comments, we emailed directly to you from, I can't remember, it wasn't really public comment, but it was from a human services funding request from one of our partner organizations. Great, but other than that, we have nothing additional.
Great, thank you. And then do we have anyone online this evening that would like to speak? If so, please raise your hand and the clerk would be happy to elevate you to a panelist. All right. And then if you, once clerk promotes you, if you could provide your name and you'll have 3 minutes to speak to any topic you wish. And it looks like Cecilia McCorkle, you've been elevated to panelist. So if you'd like to unmute, you're welcome to speak.
Good evening. I'm actually here representing Lisa Yeager from the Snow Valley Senior Center. And I do have a comment from her to read. Should I just go ahead and do that?
Yes, please do.
Okay, she says, I want to share with you the exciting news that the Snow Valley Affordable Senior Apartments has reached its campaign goal of $300,000. The next steps are to apply for our final funds from King County and the state of Washington in September. Our applications will brag on your support of this project. We're mostly funded, so these government grants will get us to the finish line. They've indicated their support, so we're hopeful. We will know for sure if we're fully funded by the end of December. We will then continue work on permits and the final closing in April. Then we can break ground in the summer of 2023. Thank you. You are our partner and friend, so we'll continue to keep you up to date on the project. But right now, just take pride in the difference that you have made. I also want to thank you for your support of Human Services and of the Snow Valley Senior Center in particular. It has an impact. We serve about 1,000 each year with about 38% from the city of Duvall. We're committed to helping everyone across the county fulfill their potential by building a foundation of well-being for residents of all ages. When all people, regardless of race or gender or where they were born, have the opportunity to reach their full potential in life, everyone benefits through the shared contributions that create strong, thriving communities. This makes our entire region a better place to live economically, socially, and culturally. We're now providing programs in Spanish, plus we also offer specific programs for our Rainbow Elders. We partnered with the India Association of Washington and with Encompass for our grandparents raising grandkids. We provide transportation, meals, fitness, health and wellness, and adult education so that Duvall's older adults can lead healthy, enriched lives. Please remember us and the other crucial human service providers in the Valley in the 2023 budget. Please increase your investment and consider an automatic inflation adjustment. Together, we'll make Duvall a thriving community. And that is signed from Lisa Yeager. I would like to add something, if I may.
Yes, please do.
So I am a resident of Duvall. I'm also a member of the Senior Center, a volunteer there, and I serve on the board. And I would just like to let all of you folks know that the Senior Center is, right now, we are in the process of updating our mission and vision statements. We're working on more intergenerational activities. And I would just like to encourage all of you to check out what happens at the Senior Center. It's a very vibrant place with many, many activities happening. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, do we have anyone present in the room that would like to provide public comment this evening? Okay, not seeing any. So we'll go ahead. Do we have a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to scheduled items. First up is the mayor's report. It's definitely, things are ramping up again here this fall. We had the AWC board meeting a couple of weeks ago where the legislative agenda was approved. We've been working with at SEA to recruit and interview and select a new executive director. There is a special closed session of the board this Friday to discuss the candidate, and hopefully there will be a public announcement soon. I think that that folks will be very pleased with the choice. Snoqualmie Valley Governments Association was last Wednesday night. There was a focus on public safety, police reforms, and just in general what's going on in our communities. And I think obviously everyone has seen an uptick in crime over the last couple of years due to many reasons. It's not a local issue, it's a nationwide issue. And so there were some good discussions surrounding that. Also last week was the Association of Washington Cities Connector up in Everett. The Snohomish County Cities and Towns sponsored it. There was a great turnout from Snohomish County. Unfortunately, only a couple of us from King County, but the presentation surrounded around Snohomish County Human Services, as well as public safety discussions. There is a new coalition that has developed with Mayor Cassie Franklin and Mayor John Nearing of Marysville leading the way on working to make sure that there's some more tweaks in the coming legislative session to fix the things that haven't been working with some of the criminal justice reform. And with that, I believe that's all I have for this evening.
Then the consent agenda. Don't forget.
We did the consent agenda.
You did.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I wasn't listening.
Thank you though, because it wouldn't be uncommon for it to get looked over. All right, do we have a written report from King County Fire District 45 tonight?
They will be reporting out at the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Next up is a Duvall Police Report with Chief Duvall.
I don't have an official report, so I haven't provided that at the next council meeting, but we do have our national Faith and Blue event this Sunday at the Timberlake Church at 12 o'clock. The entire community is welcome to attend that event.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Moving on to council committee reports. First up is finance and administration.
Sure. So we have not met, and we were planning to meet this week, but it's been postponed until next week. And the procurement policy has been delivered to Dana, to Director Mason. And there's just some, formatting and some tweaking that remains that was best left in the hands of the professionals. And so hopefully we'll, once things calm down with budget, she'll hopefully have a chance to take a look at that and then bring it back to the FAC for a review and then to council. So it's been a huge lift. It's a gigantic document that impacts every inch of the city since, cities spend money, and this is about how you procure things. So anyway, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Is there a land use update?
Oh, was I? Okay. We had a brief land use committee meeting on Monday morning, and it was in response to receiving a draft of the housing needs analysis that was a joint project between our city, Snoqualmie, North Bend, and Carnation. And Councilmember Schaefer and I were in attendance with Director Thomas and Acela.
And we just reviewed the document and provided some feedback. And I don't know if that will at some point be provided to council, but maybe Director Thomas can share.
And we'll actually, it's on the city
Oh, it is?
administrator report as well, so. we can
Okay.
pin it there.
Sure, yeah. And then I think there was one other thing on the agenda, but I wasn't the one who took the notes, so.
Councilmember Schaefer talked a little bit to us about the food truck policy.
That's right.
That, you know, and what we suggested was that we bring it back for a conversation at a future COW and see what the interest is for moving that forward.
Right, all of council received a comment from someone who owned a piece of property that they would like to put food trucks on, so. That's it.
Thank you. On a side note, I'm excited that council is going to talk about food trucks. After being in Bend, Oregon last year with the food truck gardens that they have, it's really a community gathering space. And I think there's a lot of good opportunity for the city in exploring that further. Next up is public safety.
I will take that since Councilmember Schaefer's not here. So we met on September 27th. And it was myself, Councilmember Schaefer and Mercer, and of course Chief DeBach and it was just Chief DeBach there that day. So basically just got an update, you know, as always on the recruitment, hiring, what positions do we have open, that kind of thing. I think there'll be more about that in the chief's report. Just an update on the timeline of the FOP negotiations that, you know, they'll be beginning. So let's see. Additional items, there will be some upcoming things on the consent agenda at future meetings, probably regarding MHP services with Redmond, ordinance change regarding electronic service at court orders, you know, kind of more maintenance things that just need to get done. So just keep an eye out as those things come up. As the chief already mentioned, they have an upcoming Faith in Blue event, you know, and one thing that got brought up, and of course the chief intends to do this, you know, is make sure it's a diverse opportunity. You know, it's not just, we do have a lot of like Christian churches in town, but there will be others. And of course, they're open to attend all those and make it very open to everybody. So that's exciting. And of course, you know, they've talked about the breast cancer awareness. You'll see the pink badges they've been wearing, which are awesome. And then November is going to be No Shave November, where you'll see beards and things like that to raise money for cancer awareness groups. So I think that's all fantastic. A few things that pop up on Good of the Order usually for us would be, you know, for example, I think this came from me, is seeing a post about a porch pirate thing starting up, you know, and of course the department's totally on it and they take care of those things really quickly. And I think I had heard that their new, the new admin specialist is able to help them keep a little bit of an eye on that stuff as well, because she's so far ahead in her training and doing super well. That's about it. I'll cut it off there.
Great. Thank you. Public Works.
We did not.
I'm not on it anyway.
Great. Then ad hoc committees. Is there any update on council procedures?
I think Sarah and I need to meet still, and I think that's about where it's at, but it'll come to conclusion soon.
Okay.
At some point.
Thank you. And then other council reports. Does any council member have any events or meetings that they attended that they would like to share with the group? Councilmember Naflin?
Yeah, so I can't remember where this happened. I think it happened at the Parks and the committee, the Snoqualmie Valley Recreation Committee that I'm on. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name. And one of the commissioners for the Parks District down that serves North Bend and part of Snoqualmie, she offered to connect me with their director, and I had a meeting to just learn more about what a park district was. There's different types of park districts, and he shared a lot of information about that. So at some point, I think it would be interesting to have a conversation where we could learn more as a council about what that is, and if that would be something that this council would be interested in pursuing. So anyway, I just wanted to let y'all know that I had that meeting. Maybe I'll write up a brief memo just to share what I learned, so.
Thank you. And on that note, I do want to share that is something, the parks funding and how we fund parks has been kind of an ongoing We haven't had the bandwidth to explore the Parks District, but if council is interested in that, I know that I am very interested in exploring that as well. And that dives into that sustainable resilience, budgeting and municipal financial planning. So we can definitely do that after budget's done and we'll start to get into that bigger conversation of how we're sustainable for sure. But thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Just quickly, next week, and I failed to send out an email, and I will do that after this meeting. Wednesday, October 12th, I'm at 10 a.m. I'm gonna be in front of CC's for a council chat, and that had made it into the newsletter.
Yeah, I
The
saw it in the
missing
newsletter.
link was
Yeah.
me emailing you all to remind you. So we can have up to 3, so if you guys feel like showing up or you're available to come down and get a coffee or something. Last time we had a pretty good turnout. It was fun, so. Hopefully the smoke will not be a factor this time, but that's what I got. October 12th.
Thank you.
Next week.
Any other council members have anything they'd like to share? Seeing none, we'll move on to administration. First up is city council recruitment.
So we had our initial deadline passed and we had one application in that I verified minimum requirements were met and I forwarded on to you. And we figured we would just leave it open to get more applications since we only have one. Technically, it's in the council's purview whether you want to do that. So let me know if you object to us just doing that. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more people. And then you can go ahead and begin your individual interviews. We wanted to get that out there right away because Councilmember Schaefer is out of town and he maybe have a chance to interview before he left. So, and I contacted the applicant and I told him that you would be calling him. So it's not a surprise that he expects you to call. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Director Thomas or Director Laniszewski on city's facilities reopening projects.
Good evening, Mayor, staff, council, and guests. Steve Laniszewski, Public Works. I'm a little thrown off. I got a computer camera in front of me to choose over here. So let me share my screen real quick. I may have over shared tonight, but it'll go quick. Okay. Couple notes on facilities and then other projects. You may or may not have noticed, but if you drive by the former youth center, it is now white. That was a historical color. We elected to change it from the blue as it is an allowed color in Old Town. It was a historic color and it should help with heating and cooling issues in that old structure. Also hoping.
We lost you.
Director Laniszewski, we can't hear you.
My default microphone has changed. Ooh.
We can hear you now, Steve.
Okay, I was fiddling with my earbuds, so they took over for a second. Yeah, so it is white. I don't know if you heard. So that was a historic color. It is an allowed color, and we thought it might help with the heating and cooling issues in that older building and limit the growth of flies. Very exciting. Oops. So that's painted outside. That will be getting a paint of coat inside, as well as the depot in and out. Visitor center is being prepped. It's not begun painted today outside, trying to get the outside done before weather turns. It is a pretty short contract. These buildings should be done in the next 40 days. A quick note on the wastewater treatment plant remodel. We're at 75% design with the plans. Ben is wrapping up the exterior design, working on an electrical issue. Long story short, there's 2 panels on the wall feeding that building. We always thought one was a sub panel to the other, but it turns out half that building is fed by a line service from the street. Half that building is fed from the actual treatment plant, which is why when power goes out, it keeps going. But all that is lit really is outlets and lighting. There's no heating or cooling. We've just never had a long enough recollection of being powered down on that building to have noticed no heat or air. So we're working on that issue with the design. Either way, it's kind of a cost or a savings with the treatment plant remodel itself. They actually need larger transformer pull, so we'll probably give about 115, I think it's amps back. Pull the building off of the backup power and then provide backup power under our own small, fixed mounted generator going through the design process. So either way, it seems to be benefiting one project or both. And then police station, trying to find time to finalize the legal words on the document itself to get that out to bid this week. Long story short, only certain folks with certain credentials can qualify to come into the building. So we have to wrap that into the legal language required of the contract. And as far as the bid announcements and making it a level playing field. So we're trying to wrap that up in and amongst lots of other stuff. I'm going to jump into more public work stuff outside of facilities. Are there any questions? Is that kind of the information that was desired? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me at all. Just a quick note on the parks. Last, maybe a meeting or two ago, we talked about working on some exploratory work around and adjacent to the existing properties we own. So we do have the surveyor, who is our on-call surveyor, parametrics, doing that legwork, searching title and any other underlying conditions that may or may not interest us in pursuing any other parcels around. The sidewalk project, 142nd Place, is going out to bid this week. So we're advertising, I believe, tomorrow. We'll have an opening on the 26th. We should have council project award in the packet on the 1st of November. And it is going to be weather sensitive to some extent, but they can certainly do some work in the winter. So we expect some work to happen prior to winter. Still have another 30+ days of dry weather in the long-term forecast. So time will tell. We are at a $570,000 engineer estimate. We did leave. We normally strip off any contingencies, but we kind of left a market uncertainty note in there. It doesn't really matter. A bid is a bid. All the details are in the bid itself, but we were just contemplating expectations, and really nobody knows where anything is at this moment. If you have or haven't noticed, fuel is up, 40 cents in the last 5 days, it seems. So things are just so far over and around, we really don't know what to expect. General notes on just public works elements themselves, where we've already prepped and ready to go out for our hauling contract. That will come early next year. Biosolids hauling, that's a 3-year contract. Citywide facilities, ARC is behind. They had several things kind of crop up and delay. They do know we are very anxious to get that done and wrapped up and presented and coming back to council as soon as possible. So they are trying to wrap that project up. Overlay is complete. All projects, including the extra on the Taylor Park area. We are still, it hasn't been talked about much, but Seattle Public Utility wholesale water contract, that 50-year contract that I will complain about every time, that was promised never to see again. They are trying to open that up to fix and change some terminologies and other elements that are within it. Not a huge deal, but that is still ongoing. We signed a 1-year extension to continue to negotiate on their behalf and our behalf. So that is a regional thing. That is not just like SPU and Duvall. So we're really much not even the tail of the dog wagging this thing. So we're just kind of on standby, paying attention and making sure there's nothing out of the ordinary. Third Avenue is continuing to go from preliminary into full design. We'll have a update, I think sooner than later. Ben said they were actually ahead of schedule. It'll just be hard to compete with time on the budget. So we'll be cognizant of that as we move forward in the next couple months. Treatment plant, we are ahead of schedule and we should be bidding next month. That's kind of a big thing. We are excited about that. It's a great project, and we're happy it's, knock on wood, moving forward so far with little issue and good coordination with Suez, who is kind of our prime internal consultant who helps manage the site already. And then we will have a wastewater treatment plant construction management contract coming soon for that design, or for the construction of the treatment plant upgrade. And then if you haven't noticed, the hydrants between 278th and Main Street are all repainted, cleaned up, and looking good. They finished on time, did a great job, no surprises. And that is all I have for you folks.
Thank you, Director Laniszewski. Does anyone have any questions for Steve? Seeing none, thank you. And we'll move on to the housing needs assessment update.
Oh, one thing too, I'm sorry, Mayor. And maybe Laura will cover it, but we did talk to Metro today about new routes coming in and to and through Duvall. So I can't see Laura if she's going to mention that or not.
I was, but go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so it was a, oh, I love the magic eyeball. We had a meeting with the route planners for Metro, staff, myself, Laura, Larissa, city engineer, and Acela. They are looking to bring more service to town. We, I think, finally have convinced them that there is more to Duvall than just downtown. So they are looking at routing it down Main Street to Big Rock, using the roundabout at 3rd and then coming back through town. So it's a great loop. They are looking for layover space. I think they understand after meeting with us that parking in that area is a premium. So we would be very reluctant to hand over stalls per se. And if you say, oh, we might be able to do some hours, they're looking at 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., maybe 9 p.m. on serving. So it's really going to be tough to not have those, stalls lost for a good bit of time. We're looking at some service time lengths, year, 2 years. Trying to use some spots on Main Street that are actually non-parked already. So we're looking at alternatives. They understand that we don't have a lot to spare, especially in an area that's barely developed out and it is only going to develop more. So we talked about also engaging more in the development process. So SEPA conditions and whatnot, trying to make some more space and require some other elements, maybe legally through development process. So they were amenable. We'll put somebody else's name on those documents and try to move forward. Anything to add on that, Laura, before I do 2 more things I forgot?
No, I think you covered it very well.
Okay. And then hours of operation in general, the city next Monday will be going back to more of a full open schedule. We'll still have some downtime just for administrative work behind kind of doors that we don't have to have open so people can focus. And I think you heard me bellyache a little in the earlier meeting. Recruiting again is abysmal in my opinion for our group. So the 2 positions we have open that were budgeted January 1 are still vacant. So I don't know what we'll do. Maybe we'll talk to the mayor about trying that recruitment tool that we just adopted. I think the strikeouts I have had, we are being used as negotiating tools. So yeah. We're fairly gravely disappointed in our group, like pretty bad. Sarah and Larissa are very sad. So yeah, we're working on something. I will probably make some kind of hybrid, and I don't know. We'll see what we got to figure out, but it is very tough. That's it. What was me?
Thank you.
Did you have this? Yeah.
Oh, Councilmember Naplin?
Yeah, I just had a question for Director Laniszewski. First, a comment. I'm really excited to hear about the bus route, and that was something. I'm on the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition, and that's something that's been discussed repeatedly. That as we develop out, we need to plan for possible future routes. And what's been happening is, Metro might be asked, so like, yeah, that doesn't impact us. We don't drive buses down that, but that's based on their existing service. And there needs to be a looking forward of what might we need in the future. And like, what Director Laniszewski talked about is even things like a layover location where, they can park for a certain amount of time. So anyway, I'm really excited to hear that. And I also want to give Acela a bunch of credit because she worked with the Mobility Coalition and just to kind of open that conversation about bringing that loop down. So I'm just absolutely thrilled. It'll be interesting to see if, it's utilized. It's always an experiment. You don't know, but it would be nice to get some vehicles off the road.
Yeah, they have some pretty rigorous policies that kind of make it fairly difficult, and
Mhm.
you know, they were a little my way or the highway. Laura would probably agree with me. If you know Larissa at all, she was pretty irritated at the meeting afterwards, but
Oh.
we tried real hard. We engaged them. They had some good thoughts that we all kind of came together on. They will send some more finalization back to us for kind of a look-see. They won't do anything, of course, without our approval, but we will try to make it reasonable and realistic. But yeah, they have to be within 1,000 feet of a restroom. Typically they're like 800. So a Starbucks, a Safeway or something. They don't go backwards. Those things are, no offense. I know Mr. D-Buck's there, but like fire trucks don't go backwards. Buses now, apparently they don't go backwards. They can't park them in any sort of place that isn't pulled straight in without even backing up to not lose a stall behind them. So it's a little difficult to find, 60 feet of space when they really only need 30, but that's just because of maneuvering of their parking. So that was a little disheartening. But yeah, we're working on some spots. We explained to them the South End, and not only the mass amount of developments coming, but the connectivity in the multiple road networking we require in our codes. So First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, all that. So I think they will be able to find something. It may get better over time for them, but like they said, a layover of 15 minutes and a route loop to get to the layover of 7 takes 14 minutes when you got to do it twice to get back on your route over the break. So I mean, it's understood how they want to be as efficient with their business management as possible. We all get that, right? You don't want to pay for anything that isn't necessary or warranted. And they're cognizant of that, which we appreciate. But yeah, we're working to try to find something that works out. At least we kind of talked about like a trial, but they want it forever. And I was like, well, how about 12 to 18 months and we can talk and stuff. So they'll be back soon. But it's good.
Thank you. My question that I wanted to ask was, when do we expect to open our buildings for community use? Will there be announcements? Anything we need to do to move that forward?
We haven't really talked about taking that back, and the good news is the magic eyeball will focus to Sarah, but Sarah and I will be meeting this week to go over some of the details of facilities, interior needs, furniture, tables, kind of stuff. After that, it really isn't up to me. It's just how do we get it reserved, and who's going to take that over, and what does it all look like? So
thank you.
And just to add on the Metro thing, so for those that think that King County doesn't do anything, this was 13 years in the making. The city of Duvall has been working on this issue for 13 years. And we have constantly been a good partner to Metro, even when they've not been able to provide us service, and always treated them with respect and dignity. And the slow game wins this one. And so this is a really big deal that we're getting as much service as we are getting. It took a long time for their planning process and the economy and Sound Transit to start coming online. But this is what happens when you stick to something that's difficult for the long haul. Also want to note that we've also been having conversations with Metro, continued. This is, again, years in progress, about having better coordination with community transit and getting a line directly across the county line for the proper hours. We have the Snoqualmie Valley Transportation that does go to back and forth Monroe, but it doesn't meet the regular commuting needs. And community transit literally goes all the way up to Index to downtown Everett. And so they definitely serve rural areas, and we can get a lot of cars off the road if Metro and community transit can build that partnership. So they've committed to setting up meetings with King County elected officials to try and move that forward as this new bus service comes online. So just a little bit of added stuff that Steve didn't get to include in his report. All right, Director Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and members of the community. This will be really cool. Okay, so.
I still need to share the screen, even though it looks like I'm not. So. All right, there we go. Let me just go to the second screen. Okay.
So obviously we've gone through a couple of items already, and the first item that I'm going to talk about is the housing needs assessment. But I don't need it.
No, wait, no, this is not.
I'll go and start. So the housing needs assessment for the Snoqualmie Valley has been a little late to start, a little late to get the first draft out. And some of the reasons for that are just the consultant industry is suffering the same capacity and staffing issues that we are, but also because we rely on census data to do a lot of this work. And it was honestly just recently released over the last couple of months. So they were able to get us a draft of that plan late last week, and we have about 10 days to internally review it. And so we had a pretty quick, easy committee meeting this week. I got a lot of good feedback. We're going to touch base a little bit more with the committee, make sure we got all of our comments. But that being said, we will also be kicking off our local housing needs assessment and our housing action plan. And as I had talked about a little bit last time, we're actually going to create a special web page that will link to our page. Within community development, we'll be hosting a community survey. So we hope to have that kicked off in November, but it relies on this valley work to get completed first. We also, as you can see, are going to be having a workshop for the housing needs assessment. And that's for the Snoqualmie Valley portion. It was one of the items that was in our contract. So we wanted to make sure that it was there. I have the dates up. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So we're going to have a joint planning commission and city council workshop. We actually are going to have two that are going to be in November. The first one is November 9th, and that's to go over our shoreline master plan update, and then to go over growth management, comp plan periodic update. So it'll be a similar format to our transportation planning workshop. You already received an email about that yesterday. And then today, when I found out that we can start scheduling our housing needs assessment, we'll be looking at November 16th or 30th. So please take a look at those dates on your calendar. And if one works better than the other, please email me. I will try to probably set it by the end of the week, just so that we get it locked in. Everybody has it on the council. That being said, there's a lot of meetings that are coming up. Basically, a lot of our work happens at the end of the year, especially with the biennium budget. And then a lot of planning items happen at the end of the year as well. I did want to add on here that we're going to talk a little bit about our council workshop on October 11th. And we were scheduled to talk about budget, but obviously our budget is going to be released at that following meeting. And so we don't have anything technically prepared for next week. And so we want to have a discussion. Obviously now we know we're going to have a closed session for FOP contracts. And then Mayor, I wasn't sure if you wanted to add anything else to that special meeting, since we're not going to do presentation meeting.
Not that I can think of at this time, because the budget won't be fully ready to be presented.
So I think we'll have.
Unless that changes, unless talking to Dana and folks and getting ready, if that changes between now and Friday, then we can release the budget on the 11th. But I think that there's still some more work that finance director was doing to look at our projected ending fund balance to tighten that up.
My guess is that we won't be prepared for October 11th. Dana is currently working on completing our biannual, essentially our budget amendments that we approved this year, getting those all squared away and making sure we know what we have at the end of the year, so that we can include that, incorporate it into our budget. So she's working on that this week. It may be where we're prepared to talk about our budget amendments for the second year of the biennium. I don't have any other items because we already talked about those.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? And I will just note, we are a couple of weeks behind on the budget, and that's due to some challenges. The finance department is absolutely overwhelmed with software implementation right now, as well as just it's been really tight to try and get all the information necessary to finalize a budget. So this is later than normal. However, I will say that other than restoring services and a couple of capital items, it's status quo. So the majority of the budget will be all the things that we're used to funding. So there shouldn't be, other than the new items that are added, we'll discuss those extensively. There shouldn't be any major surprises. So that is the good news. All right, moving on, we do not have any public hearings or unfinished business. So we will go ahead and move into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1107G to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment. And with that, I would like to ask all staff and visitors within the room to leave the room. And clerk.
Did you mention how long?
Not yet.
Okay.
So we will start with 10 minutes. And if we go longer, we'll have someone notify the clerk. And then come back into regular session for 2 items of new business for voting.
So Mayor, so we're staying on this for those of us virtual. We don't have a separate executive link, right, tonight?
You'll use the Teams link that you used earlier in the evening.
Okay, thanks.
The Duvall City Council requires 3 additional minutes for executive session. They'll resume the regular meeting at 8:13 p.m. Thank you.
It's
I just thought of that. I'm like, well, if we're, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I hate it when it zooms in on me. It's so weird. It's worse than Zoom.
Sorry. Do that on purpose.
Yeah, it's picking up on the.
We have returned from executive session at 8:14 p.m. And we will move on to new business. First up is Agenda Bill 22-88, appointment of Cynthia McNabb as city administrator. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve Agenda Bill 22-88, appointing Cynthia McNabb as the Duvall City Administrator.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to Agenda Bill 22-89, employment contract for city administrator.
I move to approve Agenda Bill 22-89, approving an employment contract with Cynthia McNabb for city administrator position.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, on October 24th, our new city administrator, Cynthia McNabb, will be joining us at the city of Duvall. So welcome and congratulations. And
So excited.
would you like to come up to the podium and introduce yourself? So, and I will say before Cynthia starts talking is that we had a really fantastic pool of candidates, especially the finalist candidates, with really diverse experience. And Cynthia comes to us with a really broad background and a unique set of skills and innate abilities that I think are going to serve our community really well. And so we are thrilled to have her in.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm so excited to start on October 24th. I'm excited to be here. I'll be here at your next city council meeting as well to hear about the budget, so I can start learning early before I get there on the 24th. I love the city of Duvall. I couldn't be happier to serve the community. I've spent a lot of time in the community. My daughter has played softball here. She learned to drive on your streets. I'm sorry. My husband who's here with me, we eat at the Grange, and so I'm absolutely delighted, and I'm also delighted to help the community take some work off the plates of the people that are here and get started doing the hard work of helping the mayor. So, thank you. Thank you.
Very excited. All right, so moving on to the last item of business is discussion on budget format.
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up because it occurred to me after the mayor made her comments that there were two kind of aspects regarding whether you break it down annually or not. One of the aspects was just how is it presented in the budget document? And the other aspect was how are we going to appropriate the money? And if you aren't familiar with what that means, the appropriation is legally how you're allowed to spend the money. Are you allowed to spend the full amount of the money, the 2-year money, in any of the 2 years? Or would you separate out and you could only spend like 2021 money in 2021 and 2022 money in 2022? That's about appropriation. I wasn't sure that there was support for that just because there was some uncertainty when we had this discussion at the council level of how much work would that require, you know, how would this work with OpenGov? So I thought through that, and the proposal that I have here that I sent is only on how it's presented in the budget document. It wouldn't restrict the money in the appropriation realm. It's just the information is already produced at the annual level. It's at that granularity already. It's already loaded into the system at that level. I believe in the budgeting software, the spreadsheets are all annual. So this is really just bringing forward that annual view in the budget document so that we can see our annual revenues sufficient for annual expenditures for each year. And it's really just a formatting of how it is shown to council so that we can make our decision. It's not going to impact how managers have to manage their budget, how Director Mason has to manage things on the financial software. It's really just a decision tool and a form of transparency. And when this idea originally came forward in July in the finance meeting, I didn't receive any concern from Director Mason. I don't want to speak for her, but I also think that she expressed similar feelings when we discussed it as a council, that just showing it at an annual granularity in the budget, which it already is, it just isn't rolled up to the final page, because I think it's useful to have a way to view this without diving into the individual trees. This would provide a forest level view of each year to understand budget sufficiency. And I didn't, from both that finance committee meeting and from the cow discussion that we had, I didn't see any resistance or concern from Director Mason that that portion was something that she thought created a significant burden. So I don't know if everyone had a chance to read it. I actually I didn't recall that there was any consensus among council that there wasn't support. I don't think that question really got asked at the last meeting. It was kind of a loose conversation. And so I hope this, I mean, if we don't want to decide tonight because there's concern this is a surprise, I would respect council how they feel about it. But this is something that had been talked about quite a bit. And I wasn't intending to surprise anyone, and I apologize if it felt that way, but it has been discussed quite a bit. And I didn't feel like there was resistance to this aspect of it. And so that's why I removed any discussion about appropriation and dividing out the appropriation, because I just decided, you know, it's getting kind of late. But anyway, I don't know where we want to go with this conversation. If anyone had any questions for me, or if there was a certain process we want to follow, or I'm just curious how people feel about it.
Councilmember Isaacson, I can ask or make a statement, ask a question.
Sure.
I mean, I don't see why anyone would object to it if it really is just a matter of giving some transparency and granularity. And if in your conversations with Director Mason, she says it's nothing, it's just giving us clarity. I don't know why anyone would oppose to it. I don't want to create extra work on any of the staff, but if the data is there, it's just a matter of showing it in a way that we can understand it in 1 year increments as opposed to guessing where it is. I don't know why anyone would oppose it. So the way you're explaining it, Councilmember Naplin, I 100% on board. I don't know why anyone else would oppose to it, but I can't see, and I ask anyone, mayor or other council members, is there any negative aspect of this? I can't anticipate any.
Mayor Pro Tem Kennedy.
I think that, there was some feedback. I don't know if we want to share that or, you know, I think director at this point had weighed in on the 3. And secondly, though, I just want to say thank you for laying this out the way you have, because, you know, if I've learned anything in the past 5 years, it's you have an eye for numbers. And when you understand things in a certain way at a certain level, you're then able to take that and explain it in more simple terms. So I like your concepts you've laid out. So I don't know if we want to talk about, I know Director Mason did have a little feedback. She couldn't be here tonight. Or my other thought though, was the FAC is meeting next week. And I think there are some Councilmember, I have this up in front of me, the email that got sent out about the format proposal. And there's 3 items. I think I saw one labeled as we do this currently, we can do this, but then one was too much work right at the moment for this year, but maybe we could look at it next year. So what's that?
Which piece was the line?
3. So
Oh, that doesn't impact the budget. That's just going forward when amendments or
Got it.
things
Okay.
happen in the future.
So my thought was, you know, if council was supportive, that maybe, you know, we could just hammer this out in the next FAC meeting. Or I don't know, does council just want to decide right now, right here, that yes, no on certain one of these items? I don't know. I just want to throw that out. That we could have the committee kind of hammer out details on it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna just say a broader concept. I mean, anything that makes it easier to digest the data. I think that the piece that even though Director Mason has provided feedback, I would feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
If she had an opportunity in real time to respond, even to any questions we have, because I think the 2 things that I'm sensitive of, I think there's an assumption that the intake, you know, comes into the system and doesn't create additional work. Downstream, I would also just want to make sure that there's no opportunities that data could get out of sync based on the 2 views. And then just her feedback. For me, I mean, it would be easier. I think we've seen sometimes in some of our discussions, sort of following the funds through the various, particularly in the biennium when it's being spent in different years, it can be challenging. It doesn't mean you sort of can't walk through the experience, but for me, I think that's the biggest piece is I wouldn't feel comfortable making a decision or a direction without Director Mason being here to respond or raise any concerns that she has. And whether there's additional work that can be done in terms of the finance committee or others, just to work with her to sort of work through some of that, even in advance, that might be helpful as well.
And Director Laniszewski had his hand up.
Oh, I was waiting. Council should certainly finish before I jump in. I just quick couple of comments as a user. If you don't mind, I can go now. I would just side out with Councilmember Mercer. Dana really should be here. I'm not sure how old the information was that she shared, but as she's a high-end user, I'm a mid-level user, and I'm not sure honestly what we're going to have OpenGov show us when this is all said and done. So it may be a boatload of work, and you guys know Dana's way too nice to tell you that, and another 80 hours a week and we'll never see her again. So I don't know. We need to get her to give us an honest answer as well and not a pleasing answer. That's my perspective with her. You guys may or may not know, just utility software rolling over, all the timekeeping software rolling over has been an amazingly difficult time. None of the people in the room, I'm actually outside. I walked down to say hello to Cynthia and meet her husband. But I have my dogs with me, so I'm outside. But yeah, it is just a lot of change and implementing stuff into the system that's not taking as easily as we had hoped and were told, and as new users. So let's just leave it at a lot of tears have been happening for many things, and it's just been an enormous mountain to climb. So I would just caution that. Dana's the best finance director we've had. I don't, another needle in the haystack might just make it really bad. So certainly I think we should talk to her at the committee level and at the council level. That's my opinion. We're here to help and do what we can and try to implement whatever changes we can do to help her in the system, but it's massive, and I'm not sure what we're going to get out of it and how it's going to look. We all hope it's going to be a product that we're all supportive of, but we're not there yet, which is just a big transition. So bad timing, that's all.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to backtrack a tiny little bit. This originally came up a while ago in the finance committee. I was one of I think Councilmember Hoag was still in at that point, and I was definitely one of the ones that said, hey, let's bring this back to the whole council. We didn't hear any huge objections, but some time has passed and that's probably my fault to not bring it back up and get a clear, direction. I know at the time, but this was months ago, Director Mason had said, yeah, this is the time to do it. And I know we have recent feedback that I saw, but yes, for sure. I think she needs to be in person and have direct feedback, not just a quick review of it. So, I mean, if council was supportive, I think this could really get done really easily with Director Mason in the next FAC meeting next week. And I know there's no desire to push anything that would increase anyone's burden. This is simply, is it there? Is it available to us? Great. If not, it looks like one particular might be an issue right now, but if it's for something in the future, it could be possible. So I think if council is supportive of that, our committee could do that next week.
Councilmember Lovett.
Oh my gosh, I'm like trying to find the mute feature on Teams versus Zooms versus, oh my goodness gracious. I definitely think it's good to go through the committee first, see if you guys can iron it out quickly. I totally agree with that as a first step, and then going from there. But yeah, I would just echo the sentiment, the general sentiment of that if it's more work and it becomes too burdensome, I think priorities are probably not this, but from the digestibility, if that's a word, of the data, I think it would be helpful to have it, as simple as possible at first glance for the broader discussion, but only if it's not too much of a burden on what seems to be already heavy workload. And it sounds like you'll have those answers perhaps after that committee meeting. So I would say I'm in agreement with that plan.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Isaacson, did you have any comments?
No, I mean, I am happy with, again, I think we can get the granularity of an annual budget in the data, but not disrupt the biannual budget that we have laid out. And I hope that, Mayor, you understand that that's not what I'm asking either. I think we can run on a biannual budget. There's lots of benefits to that. I don't think Councilmember Naplin's questions are trying to derail that either. I think we stay with a biannual budget, but with some reports and give us a granularity on how the money is being spent on an annual basis.
Thank you. I just want to add, and I think I'll let Director Thomas go, and then I'll say some final comments because it's clear it's going to the finance committee. But
so really, I just want to confirm really what Steve said, since it's kind of out of the bag. It has been a really difficult transition with all the different software. It just kind of lined up that way, where things were a little bit late, and then it backed into our budget cycle. So we've been implementing a lot of software, whether it's utility billing, but now we just did our first payroll through UKG. That was a 3-day effort by almost everybody within the finance department. So that took away literally 3+ working days from Dana in the last 4 or 5 days. The good thing is we have a really good internal team, but it has been a really difficult path these last probably 4 weeks. It's one of the reasons, honestly, we're still working on getting the budget finalized, just getting everything in there. I can tell you, report happily, that when we go in as departments, we put them into each individual year. So I think that's really good news. I think we're really going to get there on that. And OpenGov is going to be a really good transparent model for council to really dig into it eventually when we get everything in there and going. One suggestion too, if you wanted to, like, 'cause we have finance administration committee next week, but we also have a special meeting. So if you'd rather talk about it as an entire council, you could potentially do that as well, but I'll leave that up to the mayor.
Thank you. Really to actually accentuate even more, what Director Laniszewski and Director Thomas are saying is we have a finance director that's working 7 days a week. 7 days a week right now. And as a manager, I cannot justify allowing any additional work outside of what is required to be done right now. This is the most busy I have ever seen our finance department. As Steve expressed tonight, not being able to get staff on board, there's now a report that there's more open jobs. Newsflash came out tonight, which is a sign of really big challenges moving forward. And knowing how short we are on having day-to-day needs being met of the city. No matter if it's, I just can't justify making staff do any more effort beyond our budget process and getting the day-to-day done right now. If it takes an hour, that's an hour that's not getting worked on the budget, or that's an hour that our finance director who's working 7 days a week is not spending with her family. We can't expect people to work 24/7 at a whim for things that can wait when all the data is there. And so, as Director Thomas pointed out, yes, it gets entered into each year. And like I keep saying, I want to wait until that budget is out in OpenGov and council gets to start playing around with the reporting that you can do on your own to see if that meets the needs before asking staff to do any more. It's really, as far as work goes, the hardest time I think the city's ever had, and that includes the start of COVID and all of the chaos that we are in. It is a very difficult time right now, and it's not for, I'll be honest, I've been huge on transparency for the last 13 years, which is one of the reasons we pushed this software forward, and making sure the council and the public has access to every single piece of financial information we had. Changing how the budget looks like right now doesn't actually get us to that goal. And so focusing on staff, I really would strongly urge folks to think about that. And I will be honest, our staff are very accommodating to everything that council asks for. And I'll be honest, it's at the expense of day-to-day work getting done as well. And so there are positives and negatives to that. Our staff loves council, we all do, and want to do everything for the community. But we have to put a line in the sand and protect the health and well-being of our employees. And adding more right now is not going to do that. Dana's doesn't have a voice tonight, so she couldn't be here. She hasn't had a voice since Friday. Yet she worked all weekend long. So I think that we need to think about it from not just from what we want policy-wise, because there's lots of things I want out of budget and information I'd want to be able to provide too. But the staff bandwidth is not there, and it would not be right or fair of me to ask folks that are already overwhelmed to do that work. So that's my feedback, and I hope that the finance committee will take that to heart when you meet next week, and appreciate the conversation. But at this point, part of my prime responsibility is to make sure my staff is healthy and has some level of balance. Councilmember Isaacson.
Yeah, so Mayor, I got cut out about halfway through because my internet connection dropped off. But are you implying that asking the financial director to tell us the annual expenditures and comparing those to budget is an excessive amount of work for her? Are you implying that?
No, what I'm saying, we already do that. What I'm saying is changing how the budget looks and how it's structured. And any additional, for someone who's working 12 hours a day and then during the week and then both days on the weekend, asking any more work at this point is too much to ask, honestly. Everything is in the budget. When you see OpenGov, everything you want is going to be accessible in there. And so.
Yeah, but you're asking city council to go in on free time without getting paid to go dig through this stuff. So is that what you're asking us to do?
Actually, that's council's job.
I don't agree.
Council's job is to read the documents.
I disagree with you. I think
council's-
that your
council's
job and the
job-
staff's job is to present to us the budget that we can understand.
Correct. You will be able to
Not give
understand
us
and
numbers and
interpret the
stuff that we
budget.
can't follow.
Councilmember Isaacson, you will be able to understand and interpret the budget. The budget's gonna look like it's always looked. And it's more transparent than in the last 5 years in the city's ever had, and the open gov system's gonna make it more so. Director Lenashevsky.
I think part of any, and again, the workload angst and we just don't know what it's going to look like. It may do anything everybody wants. We just don't know if there's a necessity for additional activities within the software, right? We don't know, Councilmember Isaacson. We don't know. Dana's been so deep in it. We haven't even been able to get anything out of it to see what it's going to look like. That's how much work it's taking on the back end before everybody gets to see the front end, right? Making the sausage is just been more laborious than I think obviously the finance director expected. We've all done our part and we're trying to do whatever we can to offload, but it's just so mired in detail. And you know her, she would be playing with this to get the look that she needs and she thinks everybody wants, but she hasn't even had the time to do that. So I think it's just timing. We all hear what the hope is. We as staff hope the software will do what we all want, which is exactly that. So we may be having conversations that we don't need to because it may do it, but it's so new, we don't know what it's going to look like. And we're working on getting it done and then trying to get the output to look in a way that it wants. But it is an individualized budget in a 2-year period. So everything, like Laura Thomas said, is in that way. So I hope we're going to be able to provide everything everybody wants, and maybe the system will do it. We just need more help from OpenGov as training. But this is brand new, and staff's doing their best to try to use all the tools that this software has without knowing how to use them. Right, the average user knows how to use 10% of Excel. Right, Dana's probably 90. I'm 70. OpenGov is the same way. We're new users, and I'm sure it will do what it's supposed to, but we just, and I say Dana hasn't had the chance to experiment with that look. So that's I guess, ask is just for grace in trying to let the system move forward and provide what it can. And I guess that's that.
Councilmember Natlin.
I just want to say that my understanding is this would have no impact on anything in OpenGov. This is only how it looks in the budget. And she downloads the data into spreadsheets to then paste things into the budget. She already has everything. As far as my understanding is from conversations with her, this has nothing to do with OpenGov. She already has the data. We can confirm that.
That's not what I've been told in meetings, Councilmember Natlin.
That's what it had to do with appropriation.
So again, I think we need to have Director Mason here.
Yes.
And we're getting into details when the issue is staff capacity.
Right.
And we're already significantly overloaded. So now that this is remanded to the Finance Committee,
okay.
I think we'll have probably all the directors there as well at this one to discuss, and I will work to be there as well, because this is burning out of our staff is a huge issue. And the fact that we are behind in the budget is a big issue. We normally present by the first week of October at the latest. And this is a result of implementing our software. And unfortunately, the finance director is taking the bulk of the load of this software implementation. And it is very difficult to do that and be a director pulling together our budget. We've spent hours and hours and hours as staff and as a leadership team on the budget. And normally at this point, we're ready to present to the public, and we're not. And that alone should be a red flag to say that we are overburdened and under capacity at this moment. Councilmember Mercer.
This is sort of pivoting the conversation a little bit into some things we can do. And I fully, I just did a large scale deployment of a tool, so I'm very familiar with the process and sort of the cascading workload. I was curious, sort of stepping aside from the immediate conversation in terms of things we might be able to do on our own to either learn more about OpenGov, which may address particularly around the finance piece, because it's been a rolling deployment in terms of different components. And then even, examples that might be already fully implemented at other cities that we could look at just to get, some educate ourselves, familiarize ourselves with what the UI looks like, start to get a feel for, because I assume there'll be we'll have sort of an on-ramp as well and a learning curve that we can take advantage of this time while the staff is doing the implementation to on our own to get more familiar with the experience.
Absolutely. To your point, Councilmember Mercer, if you go to OpenGov's website, they have a list of cities and government entities that they've launched the budgeting software with. And you can go in and literally find out every penny that they've spent and see it and pull your own reports. The access when the final budget software module is finally live with that and our transparency side, anyone in the community will be able to go and look at every dollar and penny that the city spends, when we spend it, who the money is going to, and looking at the budget as a whole. So it is full access to the city's entire set of finances. And that's one of the reasons that we were going for this module.
Thank you. I'll do that because I think a lot of it is around the views you can create and how to slice the data. And there's oftentimes lots of nuance around some of that. So
yeah, and one of the advantages to this software launching is that individual council members will be able to go in and create their own budgets based off of our revenues and move things around and create your own sample budget. And bring proposals forward as well. So if that's not increasing transparency and access and ability for council to impact the budget, I don't know what is. So it's a pretty big deal, and that's one of the reasons we went with this software. Councilmember Isaacson and then Director Laniszewski.
I have every bit of faith that we're going to get this stuff on LiveGov or whatever it's called. But with that said, Mayor, then it should be just as easy then for the presentation of the data to council to be given to us on the record and recorded for the public from this software from our director. So that's all we're saying is, can you present it on the record that says, here's our annual money, here's our annual expenditures, show it in a very simple way that we as council do not have to go back and interpret on our own.
So Councilmember Isaacson, that's actually the budget process. So we release the budget, the council gets the documents, and then we have weeks of presentations that deep dive into every portion of the budget by our staff. So that occurs as a regular habit already.
Then what's the hang up?
That's standard practice.
Then what's the hang up getting presented on an annual basis like Councilmember Naplin's asking?
We need to talk to Director Mason, because what I heard is that it's not just as simple as that.
But you just told us it is.
No, right now. So the full software has not launched. There is still work to be done, and there's still stuff to be put into the budget. Director Laniszewski, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you. And back to Councilmember Mercer. And Mayor, you correct me if I'm wrong, you were involved much more deeply on the front end of this than I was, but we are the first city in the state of Washington to implement the use of this software. So it has been mashed up a little to be compliant with, Washington's layout of budgeting and whatnot, which state to state varies. So correct me if I'm wrong, we are a guinea pig, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we are getting calls from other states and other municipalities in different states on how does it look. Councilman Rice, we haven't even gotten it to spit it out yet. And again, I don't know when Dana spoke to Councilmember Naplin, but the spreadsheets in, spreadsheets out, it may spit out data, but it is not converting them into any sort of view that anybody can just jump into the spreadsheet. It is not working great yet. and that's implementation as well as some need from OpenGov to support. And I think we've spent a lot of time talking about something that we just need Dana to help us on. And I think, you all must know Dana is the ever optimist. I am the office ever pessimist. So together it's good. And she will always say yes. And she told, me no just today or yesterday. So if she's saying no now, she's getting to her wits end and she's trying hard. So we do need to, I think, give us some information, be honest about what it's looking like getting in and out of it. And, because the good thing, like Laura said, everything is in it. It's just how it's not fitting into the sausage casing, right? We've made the ingredients, it is cumbersome. So that's the only way I can really explain it, because I'm not on that production end, right? We put our stuff in and we kind of wait for it to come out, and it's just, for all intents and purposes, it's stuck at this point. And that's just the internal side of how finance massages the output. So that's what's going on. And it is difficult and disheartening that we're not done. We'd love to be done, but it is where it is. So, and yes, Dana's sick, she's at home, it happens, and there you go.
And just to add to what Steve said, this is the first year where like Steve and I haven't been able to go into spreadsheets directly because it's being entered into. So we haven't been able to help as much as we typically would have done as well, which is hard honestly for Steve and I, because we've been doing budgets for, quite a while now. And, we haven't shared this will be shared later, but we're also, we're looking at our allocations, and that was like a 2-week event just in and of itself, working with each of the departments. Because it's one of the items that we had talked to council about, really for as long as the mayor has been our mayor. So I think you will get exactly what you want out of it. We're just trying to, like Steve said, shove the sausage through and making sure that everything looks right. And then seeing what does that look like. Like Dana actually showed me today, I was able to go in and see what it would look like, even though it wasn't ready, and what a report would look like, at least the first page. So I was able to see that. And it looks good. We just don't have the numbers quite right in it yet.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion since this is going back to Finance Committee? Clerk McMillan?
I just want to ask a question for the minutes. So I'm recording this as a unanimous consent decision to remand to the Finance Committee. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right. With that, we have no further business. And so unless there are objections, we are adjourned.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, man, would you unplug mine too?